Mackenzie Matthews, and this is my video on mentorship and self-monitoring for my professional practice course. The first topic that I want to discuss is mentorship. So once I'm done school and I'm out in the working field, I would hope to be able to find a mentor within the same agency as mine. So this could be a supervisor, a team leader, or another worker. I don't think a mentor necessarily has to be someone in the same working environment as myself. I would also consider a family friend, a friend, or even someone that I can look up to for trust and guidance. This would also have to be someone I can trust. A counselor can also be a good mentor to have, especially being in the CYW field. It can be difficult at times, and a counselor is always there for support and is someone that can be trusted, and I would know that they would always be there for when I need them. So an example of a mentor, I would consider my mom to be a really great mentor. Even though my mom doesn't have a CYW background, she has always been a positive mentor for myself throughout my life. She's someone I can trust and I can confide in. My mom's actually an EA for the school board, so I do think it's easier to talk to her because we have the same similarities and share similar values. Even though counseling may work for some individuals, I wouldn't necessarily be able to work for me. I would rather be involved in an informal conversation. So some characteristics that I look for in a mentor is someone with the same qualities as mine and someone that I can actually relate to and have a conversation with. Next, looking at once I had a mentor, I would use them just as a support system. The field of CYC isn't always the easiest field. It can be really stressful, it can be burnt out. At this point, we may need a mentor to talk to. I would use them as a person for guidance and support, and I don't really see this as a negotiation. I think a mentor should be informal, so if the individual is willing to be helpful, then great, and if not, then there will always be others. If it comes to a point where I outgrow a mentor, I think this is to be expected in the CYC field. I don't think anything is supposed to last forever. I would be grateful for all of the help that the individual has given me, and I would hope that we could still stay in touch, but I think at a certain point it's important to move forward and try something new. Looking at closure with this person, I think that closure would be very informal, especially if my mentor and I are already in an informal relationship. I would thank them for all their help that they have given me, and I would talk to them about how I would like to move forward. But I would still hope to be friends with them and just try to change the style of the friendship that we have, and that the mentor myself would still be able to connect. The next area that I want to discuss is self-monitoring of a professional development. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is my skill set and what I'm capable of doing. I think it's really important in the CYC field to have a calming voice that shows very little reaction. I've been told that I have a nice soft-spoken voice, and it can be really helpful in this field, and I think it's important to show little reaction. So an example that I have, in the summer I do respite work for special needs, and my youngest client that I had was 2. So we were at the park one day and we were running around and I was chasing him and all of a sudden he fell. My first initial reaction was just, didn't know what to do, right? You're just scared that he's going to hurt himself, and of course, his reaction to mine was he started to cry. So I then realized what I had done, so the next time we were at the park and I saw that he fell again, I would say, I would try and change it so I wasn't making a reaction, and so he fell, I would be like, okay, I'm going to come and get you, and chase after him, so it looked like it wasn't that big of a deal. And then the next thing you know, he would have a smile on his face and he would get right back up and start running again. So this can be the same in the working when you're working in any setting. If a client has done something, showing a facial reaction or making a noise can cause more harm. I think it's important to be therapeutic and talk it out with a client. So another skill that I have involves keeping my emotions to myself. So if someone is yelling at me or saying something that is going to make me laugh but I know is inappropriate, I find that I'm able to wait it out until I'm by myself and to either take that time and cry about what has happened or laugh it off, depending on the situation. Another skill that I find that I have is professional side of CYC work and doing more of the admin work. I find that I have a strong writing skills and I'm able to use that professional work when in the field. So in my last placement, I was at the youth emergency shelter, and I found that I had to do a lot of admin work there. So whether that was sitting in the office, answering phone calls, talking to clients, I would have to do intakes, incident reports, writing in the kids' files, and much more. To ensure that I'm not plateauing and reaching my capabilities, I think it's so important to keep myself educated through schooling, and even agencies that you work with has different types of training and workshops available all the time. So when I was at the youth emergency shelter, we always got paperwork through the hospital or through CMHA and other agencies that workshops were available that we could attend. Also, I think being in the CYC work field, our style of work changes all the time. So what we learn now may be completely different 20 years from now. So I think it's really important to keep yourself educated through the workshops, through courses, and even through other individuals who may be seeking the same type of work that we are. So like I said, last year when I did my placement through the Yes Shelter, I was able to go to a meeting, and this one was with our agency, and we were meeting up with other agency to talk about issues that the other agencies may be facing, and they were able to work as a team to talk about areas of development. So even the little meetings like that can give you a lot of information about different agencies and what they're working through. I think it's amazing how many people you can meet just in the community. So for example, I've always talked about how I want to work for CAS when I'm older. And just through word of mouth, my dad was able to connect with someone who is a CYW supervisor for the Toronto CAS, and she actually agreed to talk to me and connect with me just to give me some information about CAS, some guidance, and I was able to talk to her on the phone about some jobs, what CAS does, different areas involved in CAS, and what particular schooling that I might need to potentially be a worker for CAS. So talking about being stuck, I think in the CYC field, it's a normal feeling to feel stuck. We all have different styles of work, and sometimes that may not blend with a particular client, which could result in being stuck. I actually had this happen to me before when I was working with a client, and they told me that they just didn't want to go to school. So every morning I would try and wake him up, and he just wasn't going to go. So I actually sat down with him and I tried to talk to him about it, why he wasn't going, and if there was something in particular that he didn't like about school, or kind of try and find a solution and figure out what the problem was. After talking to him, a big part of the reason why he wasn't going to school was because he said that he had to walk 40 minutes to get there. So I ended up talking to the agency and we decided to get him a bus pass, but he eventually said that he had one before and then he sold it, and after we got him a second bus pass, he ended up doing the same thing again. So after this point, this is where I felt stuck. I didn't know where to go from there, or if it was my place to go further with the situation, as I was only a placement student, so I didn't want to overstep my boundaries. To get out of this situation, I think it's really important to talk to someone who may have had different views on things like this, so that way it can be helpful to come up with an alternative plan or have another worker step in to try and find a solution that I may not have been able to find. So this could have been a coworker or even a mentor or a trusted friend. Not only that, being able to open up to someone about something that I may not necessarily be able to fix can be a huge relief. So I know that in the past, if I'm having an issue with someone, it can make me feel like 10 times better just being able to talk with someone who does have a different side of view on things. So the last area I'd like to talk about is self-monitoring of self-care. So the difference between burnout and compassion fatigue. To me, burnout is a sign of mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion. I find that I'm able to handle my stress, but burnout can be when you can no longer handle that and the stress starts to take over everything in your life. So it sucks all the energy out of you. Every day just kind of seems like a bad day. Nothing you do is making a difference, and basically everything is just being sucked out of you. So if this was me who was burnt out, I think that it would come to a point where I wouldn't enjoy my job, and I think that's when I know that I would need a break. Compassion fatigue, I see that as more so when a CYC or myself would be getting too involved with a client, and what happens to them would reflect on myself. So this could be showing too much compassion for your work that we're involved in, and it's starting to physically and mentally drain you. So this is when a CYC would need to take another glance at boundaries and professionalism, I think. I think it's great that one is so involved in their work and involved with the clients, but when a worker is starting to take what's happening personally and bringing it home with them, I think that's when you need to draw the line. I think this can cause further issues. Some signs and symptoms. I think burnout and compassion fatigue can show similar signs and symptoms. Personally, I don't think that I would become involved in compassion fatigue. I try very hard with my boundaries, and I try to remember that this is work and not to let it drag on and think about it on my personal time, because that is my self-care time. So I have experienced a few symptoms of burnout where I've been stressed, and that may take a toll on me. So this can even involve the schoolwork that I'm going through right now. So I may not want to go to school. I would rather just sleep it off and take that time for self-care. To know if one or both of these might be occurring, I think that I might be overwhelmed in the working environment, and I might feel just like completely out of it, not focusing on anything. So I might be having a hard time not wanting to be at work or at school, not interested in the topics that are being presented, and basically just being overloaded with stress is when I would know that the burnout is occurring. So if I was feeling compassion fatigue, I think I would know I'm being too involved with the client and worrying too much and overthinking what the client may be feeling is when I would know that I'm being involved and having signs and symptoms for compassion fatigue. A few tools that I can use to assess for red flags involved in self-care. I think self-care is so important that it can help limit burnout and compassion fatigue with a client and worrying too much and overthinking what the client may be feeling. So some ways to overcome this, I think going to the gym, visiting a friend, watching a movie, sleeping, talking it out, basically whatever your personal preference is, that's what you can use. So planning for the possibility of burnout and compassion fatigue, I think it's so important. In the CYC field, anything is possible, and I think taking care of ourselves is the first step for trying to help other individuals in need. So some steps that I think about taking if this occurred. Proper eating and proper exercise, I think, are the two most important things. Proper eating is so important that it can bring your energy up, and just from having a good eating pattern along with exercise can completely change how you feel in the morning. It may be helpful for certain workers to question where they're working and wondering if this is the right setting for them or if this is the right setting for me. Is it time that I should change it up and to do something different? I know, especially working in the group home, burnout can occur quite often, and one might need to take a break, whether this is just a leave, whether it's taking a few days off, or even looking into a new setting to help recover and return to the practice. So in saying all that, I think that relationships are extremely important to have, especially when talking about supervision and mentorship and professional development. I think that without a positive relationship with a supervisor or mentor, we may not have proper guidance that we need in this field. So if we're having a bad day at work, a supervisor or mentor is someone that we can look up to, and this is a type of relationship that we can bring home with us, and that this could make our day better, and it could cause some release from burnout feelings, from compassion fatigue, or anything that we might be feeling. So having a strong relationship with a supervisor can make my day a whole much better, whether that's going up to them and asking for advice, or if they've noticed that we're having a bad day and they may want to talk about it. This could potentially turn your whole day around and make things so much better. and you can realize the importance of the job and how important it is to keep yourself healthy and full of energy in order to help others. So thank you for watching my video on supervision and mentorship.